back to the Stick 'em Up podcast. Brundi, what do we got? We don't got too much this week, really.
No, we don't got much for for news going on around the league. It's kind of coming up to the trade deadline, so this is kind of the time when there's not a whole lot of news because it's all building up to drop on us over a 1 week span. But we got a little bit of news, and we got some mock trades that have been made up by people that we'll kind of look at and see if they make sense for either side, and we'll roll with that for today.
Yeah, we kind of knew going in that, especially the lead up in the few weeks before the deadline would be kind of quiet because we already saw the Lindholm trade and we saw a lot of the bigger moves. The Monahan trade all happened well before the deadline, so we kind of figured that it might be a quieter deadline this year, especially since there's not near as many high quality players as there usually is that are available.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, that's the thing with the deadline this year, right? Is like kind of the two big pieces that we kind of knew that were basically for sure going to get moved was um, Lindholm and Monahan, and now those deals happen within I think it was like a couple days of each other,
I think it's like 2
and
or 3, yeah.
and now we're coming up, and but now it's like now we know that Chris Tanev's for sure getting moved. We know that Hannafin's for sure getting moved. Probably Markstrom at this point. And now it's starting to look more and more like there's a chance that Jake Gensel could be moved. So there's still some definitely some big names out there, and some are kind of up in the air. Will they get moved or not? But that's kind of what makes it exciting. You're kind of waiting to see if that potential deal does happen.
Yeah, and the majority of the guys you listed there were obviously Calgary Flames, and if they can get the type of value that they got with the Lindholm trade, like if like obviously a guy if like Tanev is maybe worth less than Lindholm, so you get less, but if that kind of ratio of what you're giving up to what you're getting stays the same for what if they move two of those three other guys even, that's really going to help the club going forward. I think they did well in that trade, and I think if they can pull off one or two other good trades here, we can really look back on this in a few years as this was a big turning point for the franchise to kind of retool and
Yeah.
figure out a situation, right the ship a little bit after the past few years have been tough.
Yeah, and that's a huge part of it. When you're, um, yeah, like like getting the assets back and starting to figure out what kind of identity you're looking to have going forward. It kind of all starts right here when you're moving pieces out. So
Yeah, it'll be important, and the most of the main guys that are looking to be shopped are on the Flames. So um we are later in the podcast going to do a couple of mock trades. We're going to talk about some of the potential things that could happen. So I
yeah,
got to imagine the Flames are involved in some of that. I know you are the one who set set these mock trades up, so I don't actually know
yeah,
yet. But we'll get over some of the news that there was this week, and then we'll get into that.
yeah. Um, I mean, we'll start off with the one that's um, non NHL related. Don't need to go into it too much, but the Milwaukee Admirals, which is the AHL team for the Nashville Predators, they actually set the longest win streak in AHL history with 18 wins. I don't have on me what the highest win streak is in that league, but it is worth noting that in this 18th straight win that they've got, Cody Hodgson scored for them, and we talked about him
Hey,
earlier in the year about coming back. So he's he's made his mark there for the team now, at least in that game.
hey, that's pretty good.
But other than that, like I obviously don't have much to say on it. Like it's the Milwaukee
Second
Admirals, good on them.
second longest win streak in AHL history.
Yeah, which is if you can do that and you can string together 18 wins in any league, that's always impressive.
Yeah, and especially nice for a Nashville team that's looking to kind of do a bit of a rebuild here. So uh, that bodes very well
Yeah,
for them.
yeah.
Uh,
Um,
it looks like here the 2011-2012 Norfolk Admirals hold the professional hockey hold the AHL wins record with 28 straight wins. Wow. There was
and
a
it's like
couple there was a couple
something
teams tied for
absurd.
17. Uh, the Admirals just passed the Milwaukee Admirals just passed them to take second place with 18, and then all the way up with 28 was the Norfolk Admirals. Jeez.
Yeah, so technically the Admirals hold 1 and 2. We just they've relocated in between.
Yeah. Man,
And
that's
nonetheless,
wild relocating after having a 28 win streak.
well, and that's the thing is like a lot of AHL teams usually are kind of on the move. Not too many of them have that you know that great stability of staying in one place for too long. Eventually, it
Huh?
kind of
Brundi, I'm going to give you one guess. During the 2011-2012 season, who were the Norfolk Admirals coached by?
oh um I don't even know. Wouldn't hmm. Yeah, I'm not sure. I wouldn't even have a
I'll give
guess.
you a hint. Players on this team include Tyler Johnson, Alex Killorn, Andre Palat. Pat Maroon was even there.
Oh, was it John Cooper?
It was John Cooper.
Oh wow. Well, there you go. So
Duncan
I didn't.
Keith
Oh, so
was
they
on this
were.
team. Oh no, these are just no, sorry. These are just Norfolk Admiral alumni. I scrolled too far. I was like, no wait, Keith was
I
still
was gonna
there in
say Pat
2011.
Maroon didn't seem to make sense playing with Tyler Johnson there at the time.
Yeah, as the more I read, I was like, wait, these timelines are really not matching up. But that year they were. Yeah, 2007 to 2012 were the Tampa Bay Lightning affiliate.
Oh, okay. Other quick news. Again, don't really need to dive in much on it. The 2026 NHL All-Star Game is officially heading to Long Island. Me and the New York Islanders will host it. We kind of talked about it a bit. That it's kind of weird that it's in 2026. That being because the Olympics are also taking place that year, which NHL players are going to. So we thought the next time we'd see an All-Star Game wouldn't be until 2027, but I guess they're going to find a way to work the All-Star game in still, despite having that 2.5 week break where the Olympics will take place.
Yeah. And surely the I don't have a ton of faith in the NHL for a lot of these things, but surely they are not dumb enough to be like, okay, you guys are all picked for the All-Star game. Either go to the Olympics and live your dream or eat a suspension for not going to the All-Star game. Like there's no way they're dumb enough to first of all have the All-Star game compete with the Olympics on TV.
Well,
But
they can't suspend players from going like individually.
from not going to the All-Star game?
Yeah, like if they don't go to the All-Star game, they can't bar them from going to the Olympics.
No, but like if you go to the Olympics, it means you take the suspension when the league play continues if you didn't go to the All-Star game.
Well, I don't think they would line up. Like they would do the
I
All-Star game at a different time from the
Yeah, you
Olympics.
would definitely hope.
Well, because
I
otherwise you would have like
They're not smart
a
with a
whole
lot
bunch
of
of
things, but there's no
nobodies.
way they're that stupid, right?
Well,
Like
no, and if you're doing the All-Star thing, you want to have the McDavid there, Bedard, like all
yeah.
those guys, and you wouldn't have them. At least McDavid for sure you wouldn't
Yeah,
have for the All-Star weekend, which would hurt them. So they, and I'm assuming they probably move it like, even though, because I think the Olympics are usually like middle of February, or not kind of around this time um, of the year. So my guess would be they won't even hold the All-Star game at the normal time, being the end of January. They would move it to, maybe even something of middle of January or earlier in January or something to kind
right.
of give it a little bit more spacing in between the two.
Yeah, and you got to wonder, is this maybe gonna are guys gonna want to go to bat for the All Star game a little bit more? Like, of course, now notoriously Kucherov, kind of taking the piss a bit with the All Star the All Star competition. He was a bit lackadaisical with it, um, but he wasn't the only guy who isn't going full tilt. Like, obviously McDavid was going nuts. He wants to prove he's the best. Barzell had a chip on his shoulder that nobody expected. But a lot of guys were, they were doing their thing, but they weren't hustling. And you got to wonder, if the NHL is like, look, our All Star game is a bit of a joke compared to the NBA, the All Star weekend for the MLB and all that. You know, what can you guys? We're letting you go to the Olympics. Can you kind of put in the little extra effort here? I wonder
Yeah.
if guys will try and make a bigger thing out of the All Star game. Maybe you'll see more guys on social media being like, "Hey, everyone should check this out. It's actually sick." Because right now it's a lot of smiling at the camera, and they show up, and some of the guys try pretty hard, and some of the guys you know go at uh, go at 80%. But it would
Yeah.
it would be interesting to see they go out there and they're fucking giving her for each one. Like
Hmm.
other than the fastest skater, it's kind of hard to tell if guys are like trying super hard. How
Yeah.
what does it look when you're try harding the accuracy, right? But
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly right. Some of those you can't really quite tell.
it I feel like it's something that maybe when the next All-Star game comes around, we might just kind of inherently notice and be like, it looks like these guys got some fire in them this year, so that'll be interesting to.
Yeah. 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 But it's obviously still a work in progress, but they took a step in the right direction this year, and we won't have the All Star game next year, obviously, because of the 14 kind of little tournament between countries that they've got planned.
Yeah.
So we got a bit of a while before we see the All Star game again. But yeah, like it's trending in the right direction, and hopefully
Yeah.
they can kind of continue to keep on that path that they've started on.
Yeah. And I for several years at this point, I've been very hopeful that the NHL as a whole will turn around for a lot of different issues. As soon as this next CBA gets signed, I'm really hoping that a lot of the big names, the Crosbys, the Stamkos, the McDavid, the Matthews, will go to bat for their other players, and they'll just get the right people in place to try and uh, just get more than the players got last time
Yeah.
in the 04-05 lockout.
Hmm.
And one massive thing they said is they want the Olympics back, and it looks like they got it back before that went in. So I wonder how much the NHL is going to ask for the players in return, and be like, hey, we gave you this before negotiations started. So
Yeah.
it'll be interesting to see what happens with that. I need to read up on that at some point. I imagine in the off season we'll probably have at least one episode where we talk a whole bunch about the upcoming CBA.
Yeah. Yeah. That's kind of a can we'll kick down the road and revisit
Yeah,
when the timing is
it's
is
not
right.
pertinent at the moment for sure.
Yeah. Some Detroit Red Wings news. The Red Wings have signed Michael Rasmussen to a 4-year contract extension with an average annual value of 3.2 million. Uh, I like this signing for them.
Yeah,
Obviously,
he's a good value player. That's a solid contract.
yeah. Obviously, hasn't really quite turned into the player that Detroit thought they were we're getting from him, being a former ninth overall pick. But he's a big body. He hits some blocks, and he can still put up a decent amount of points, and for a value of 3.2 for a guy like that,
especially with the
I
cap
think
going up.
is
That's
yeah,
pretty good. And this is a great example of a team knowing what they have and rolling with it. There's
yeah,
there's so many teams that will have these guys that were drafted in the top 10, top 20 in the first round, and they'll they'll be so wanting to move on from them because they're not that point per game player they wanted.
yeah,
And even if they're a solid two-way 50-point guy, could absolutely help your team win. Uh, the A lot of the teams are like, he's not what we expected, and they kind of want to move on. And it's
yeah,
good to see the Red Wings. Obviously they got Stevie Y in charge, and he's a pretty smart. He's right up there with the top hockey minds in the world, so he knows what he's
yeah.
doing.
Yeah, well, and the thing is even if it doesn't work out, it's a very movable contract. There's really no downside to it for Detroit.
Yeah, unless
Um,
he absolutely falls off a cliff. Like, if you
yeah,
do end up wanting to trade it in year 2 or 3, that there's not a ton of term on it. The cost is fairly low, and also he was like you said, a former ninth overall pick, so a lot of teams are willing to, he's been a good middle six forward for a while, and maybe if he can take that next step with your team, a lot of teams will take that risk.
yeah, yeah, exactly.
I'll take this one just because I was actually watching the game what happened because it happened against the Lightning. But TJ Oshie went down with a still undisclosed injury at this time of recording. This did not look good. This was hard to watch because other than injuries, the likes of Sergachev and stuff like that, where there's clearly a devastating injury. The next worst injury you can see is one that nothing happens at all. And Oshie is battling for the puck, and he actually wins the battle. He gets free, and he's just walking the blue line, and he just passes back. They kind of take the neutral zone, and he just collapses, holding his stomach, and he cannot move. And shout out to Victor Hedman. He actually kind of pushed him over to the Washington bench before the refs blew the whistle. Um, yeah, he was like sitting on the bench, just keeled over, holding his stomach for like 5 minutes before he even went to the dressing room. Like,
Yeah, I just watched the
yeah,
replay. Yeah,
I I don't think it's a broken rib. Like, he didn't seem to take anything there. Like I'm wondering if like he, you know, I don't know how it works, but like if it did his appendix burst, like is there something going on with his kidneys or something? Like, he just randomly his body did not agree with what was going on, and that
yeah,
it did not look good. So best wishes to TJ Oshie, and hopefully it's nothing too serious.
yeah, yeah. But those ones you can never quite tell what exactly happened or anything. All you can really do is just hope that the player is okay and can get back as soon as possible.
Yeah, I know. After the game, there, I believe, is Spencer Carberry the Capitals coach. I believe he's the
Uh,
coach.
Off the top of my
He
head, I'm not too sure.
their coach was saying that they're they're pretty concerned. Here's the quote: "Fairly high amount of concern for Oshie's non-contact injury." But Oshie did post later that night on Twitter, saying that uh, very slightly cryptic. He just kind of said, "I'll be back." You don't know if that's soon or later, but
Yeah,
he at the very least, it doesn't seem like career ending, which obviously you would hope not with something this freak accident, but he is
yeah,
also 37 years old, so it would take less at this point for something to be that level of devastating.
yeah, yeah.
But yeah, and as somebody who does not watch a lot of Capitals games, um, I every single time Tampa plays, Washington and TJ Oshie. I expect him to be so much worse than he is because I'm like, this dude's so old. And like when he was doing shootouts in the Olympics, that was like 14 years ago now.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah, it was
he
quite a
just
while
doesn't
ago.
have it anymore. Dude was he was at minimum their second or third best player
I mean,
that
it's
entire
not
game.
saying much on that Capitals team. But yeah, I mean, he's one of those guys that, he was one of those guys that was never like super fast. So he didn't rely on his speed much to kind of separate him from other players. So I mean, the older you get, like if speed was never your biggest strength, and you've always relied on your senses and just your other skills in general. Yeah, when you kind of get up there in the the later 30s, potentially even earlier 40s, you can still play at an NHL level, and you can still get by.
Yeah.
Obviously, probably not where you were in your prime, but you can
But
still
if you still
get
got
the
the
job done.
hands and you still got the IQ, like you can play for a long time.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Oshie actually almost had a goal in that game as well because he had a really nice move where he went kind of inside outside and Vasi had to do the splits to make the save.
Oh yeah.
I think that was the first shot of the game actually.
Okay. Yeah, I
Because on
was.
their second shot they scored, and I remembered going, "How should it already be 2-0?"
Yeah, I remember looking at that and I was like, I thought that was going to be a pretty easy win for Tampa, but
Yeah, I did too. They are not playing great. If we plan on talking about the standings quickly, we can do that now because the East is becoming a very interesting look for playoff spots.
yeah, it's actually kind of becoming a bit of a crunch there between all the teams in the mix.
I'm just bringing it up here, but yeah, the Leafs are now 8-2-0 in their last 10. Tampa had passed them pretty comfortably, and all of a sudden 8-0 for Toronto. Detroit's on a 3-game win streak, and Tampa's on a 3-game losing streak, and all of a sudden Detroit's 1 point ahead of Tampa. Toronto's like 7 points up, and so Tampa's on that second wild card spot with 65. So they're still it. But Washington, New Jersey, and Islanders are all at 60 points.
Yeah.
So
And
and
then
they've
Pittsburgh
all
right below at 58.
yeah, and they've all got several games in hand on the Lightning. So it's
Yeah.
for all intents and purposes, those four teams are basically tied when you can include games in hand almost. And
Yeah.
tomorrow, actually, New York Islanders versus Tampa, and then either the day after or 2 days after, it's Tampa versus the Devils, and we just played the Caps. So like these 3 games in a row are going to be crucial to how the end of the season works out in that wild card spot.
Yeah. Yeah, because if you win those two games against the Islanders and Devils, that really helps to separate you from them. But if you lose both of those to them, then you're right in the thick of it with them then. So
Yeah,
yeah,
and
those are two very, very big games for them.
it's funny because one of our recent podcasts, like 1 or 2 ago, we were talking about how Ovechkin's scoring, and that's what the Capitals need at this point. And I think at the time they were like 2-8 or like 2-7-1 in their last 10. Like they looked like they were trending up a bit, but their last 10 was abysmal. Uh,
Yeah.
they've got 3 wins in a row now, and they're right in there with the Devils and Islanders, and above
Yeah.
the Penguins.
Despite all the injuries and uh, absences from players that they have, they're still keeping in it. So
Yeah,
it's
which
impressive.
which is wild because they're 2 points. They have one more game played, but they're 2 points up on the Penguins. Penguins have a plus 14 goal differential. The Capitals have a minus 30,
Yeah.
and they're knocking on the playoffs. So
Yeah, and
that's
they're right in there.
yeah. If you get blown out 9-1, that counts as one loss, right? You don't lose
Yeah.
harder. So
Yeah, exactly.
It's how you recover from it. It's one important. Is there much to talk about with the Western? I haven't really looked at the Western wild card as of
With the
late, but
West,
it's definitely a
yeah,
closer race than I thought. You got uh, the Kings at 66 points, and St. Louis at 62 in a wild card two spot. Nashville's at 62. They're tied with St. Louis actually. Seattle's at 59, Calgary's at 59, Minnesota's at 58. Any of those teams could make it happen. I
yeah,
don't.
yeah.
How
Arizona's
close
kind
was
of fallen out.
I was gonna say, how close was Arizona? Were they in a wild card spot 11 games ago? Because they're currently on an 11-game loss streak.
Yeah, they've completely fallen apart.
They
I don't
they were
even think
probably
they
they were
were. I think
probably
they were
close.
just scratching. I think they were like right below the second wild card spot.
Yeah.
But yeah, they've completely just fallen apart, and now they've really found themselves out of the playoff race now. It's 12 back is tough to do when you've only got about,
Yeah.
26, 27, 28-ish games.
And you know what? I'm sure Arizona's fine with another year of good draft picks. Their guys are developing well. I think they're going to turn the corner in the next 2-ish 3 years, and high draft high round draft picks are always helpful for that.
Yeah.
And for all of you Celebrini fans out there, bottom three in the league are currently Anaheim with 42 points, San Jose with 35, and Chicago with 33.
Yeah. Yeah. It's gonna like I said, it's gonna end up being a San Jose Chicago battle. I don't see Anaheim dropping below either one of those teams. And if they do, then that's really bad because Anaheim should not be worse than either one of those two teams. But
No.
they were also throwing games last season to drop down to the bottom, and they didn't get rewarded for it. So,
Yeah, but you don't like seeing Chicago get rewarded either.
yeah, yeah,
Ah,
no,
God, the Ducks have so much in the pipeline. They do not need Celebrini, even if they are playing bad enough to get him. And I just don't want to see the Blackhawks win it 2 in a row. That's just such trash. Like, dude, I wanted the Sharks to get Bedard so bad last season, but man, I want them to get Celebrini just as bad this year, just because of
what?
the other teams to get him. Like, I don't want him on the Ducks. I want him on the Blackhawks even less. Like, fuck.
And that's the thing. Last year you see a lot of people that if if their team was in a playoff spot or something, they couldn't get Bedard. It's like, where would you want him to go? And they were all like, oh, you know what? I'd like to see Vancouver win the the draft lottery and have Bedard, go home to where he's from and whatnot and this and this. But like no one's talking about how Celebrini kind of grew up in the San Jose area. That being because his dad worked with the Golden State Warriors there and whatnot. And so I'm
Yeah.
not seeing not a lot of people are talking about it with Celebrini about like, yeah, sure, he's kind of from, you know, BC in the Vancouver area and whatnot. But it's like technically going to San Jose is still kind of going home for him because he grew up there and spent a good majority of his time there. So that being said, again, it's the teams that are down there. I personally don't want to just because obviously Chicago for 1,000 reasons. And then Anaheim, I mean, Anaheim's already got enough good players as a Sharks fan. I don't need to see them get another
Yeah.
player. And then that also, like, I mean, shit, like they've already got so many centers that it's made
They
Zegras
drafted they
expendable.
drafted I was gonna say they drafted Carlson, and all of a sudden Zegras went from an untouchable to trade bait. If they draft Celebrini, are they gonna be looking at McTavish like, we don't really need you anymore? Like,
Yeah, that's the thing is like they got Carlson, who's obviously going to be a stud for them. McTavish has taken that next step that Zegras hasn't, so it's made him expendable. But then you get Celebrini, then it's like, so now what? Now you've got all three of these guys. Are you going to, force one to become a winger, or yeah, what do you kind of do with that?
hey,
It'd be a.
that's a lot
It's
of
not a
talent to be
bad
playing with.
situation to
So
have.
yeah, you put them on the wing, and then you have those guys be absolute monster line. Like, if you can have them adapt to it, absolutely could be nasty.
I guess not even
Um,
to mention they got Cutter Gauthier, who we don't know whether he's going to play on the wing or center for them as well. So that's another piece that they have that, you know, could be a centerman for them. So uh, still lots
Yeah,
of time for teams to kind of move around. And like we saw last year, even if you finish bottom of the league, it's, first overall is not guaranteed.
no, absolutely. Um, One other thing I'm just going to throw out while we're looking at the standings, and I have it in front of me. Um, so I think it was even last podcast we were talking about how there's like four teams all in that 75, 74, 72 point range, and then there was the Canucks all the way up at 80. The Canucks are on a four-game losing streak. They are still at 80 points,
Yeah,
and
they've been struggling.
all of a sudden, Dallas Stars at 76, New York Rangers at 79, Boston Bruins are at 80. They're tied now.
Yeah.
So
Their
that's
Rangers are on a 9-game win streak right now.
yeah,
So that's really helped catapult them up into the top there.
yeah, and it's actually weird to look at. I guess it was literally only last night, but the Bruins have lost. It's not really a lost streak, one loss, but the Canucks have lost four in a row at the top of the Pacific. At the top of the Central, the Dallas Stars have lost four in a row. They're there's some top teams that are not struggling, obviously, but they've been putting together a bit of a skid. And
Yeah,
with the likes of Carolina on 4 wins in a row, Rangers on 9 wins in a row. Hell, even the Leafs just put up 6 wins in a row.
6 in a
They're
row. Yeah,
they're starting to knock on Florida's door a little bit.
yeah, yeah. It's a battle. Like we're seeing that more of that parity between teams in the league now, and this is what it leads to. You get these battles where there's no clear cut, number one team in the regular season kind of leading the pack, and even the wild card and divisional spots. Like it's a battle, and it could very well come down to the last game or two of the season to shift a whole bunch of things around.
Yeah, we'll definitely be on these weekly podcasts updating on the standings going forward because
Yeah,
it's close. And man, as a Lightning fan, I have not had to focus on the standings for several years. So uh, it is very interesting, but also very stressful for me being in wild card two right now.
yeah. They're not used to to being in that situation after the last couple of years.
No. But anyway, after aside from that, we still have a couple more things to get through here. Um, we talked about those. Let's talk about the man himself, the man they call Cheeks.
Peaks.
Austin Matthews the other day scored his 50th goal of the season in his hometown. Is it his hometown or just like home
He's just
area?
from the area, yeah.
Yeah. Arizona native Austin Matthews scored against the Arizona Coyotes in Arizona for his 50 and 51st goal of the season. He is currently at 52 goals in 55 games. That
Yeah,
is that is fucking lunacy, dude.
it's pretty nuts, especially now the fact that, like, you know, I think when he was at one point, when Matthews was at 43, Sam Reinhart was at 39. So it was like, okay, he's only four behind. I'm like, this could still be a race. Uh, Reinhardt hasn't scored in, I think, his last 6 or 7. Matthews drops back-to-back hat tricks and then scores one against St. Louis, two against Arizona, one against Vegas. So, I mean, when you look at that, like, he's got what's that? 10 goals in his last 5 games, and
He's
so now
increasing in pace. We were
yeah,
sitting here going, he's a monster. He's slated to get 69 goals on the year. And then it was 72. And right now I just did math and now he's on pace for 77 and a half. Let's 0.52, let's round it up. 78 goals in 82
yeah,
games.
yeah, and now he's
That is
13 ahead
absurd.
of Reinhardt, who's second in the league. Like he's completely in a class of his own right now when it comes to scoring goals.
Yeah.
It's
And
it's
of course
incredible.
the league save percentage has gone down, scoring has gone up, but dude, we shit our pants when somebody hit 60 goals for the last 2 decades.
Yeah.
And dude's gonna dude's gonna do it in the next couple games. He might do it before March if he puts up another hat trick, which is very not out of the realm of
Yeah,
possibility.
it's not out of the question at all. It's
Like,
very possible.
we used to lose our minds when somebody would be even sniffing the idea of 60 goals, and I don't think there's anybody who doubts that he's gonna hit 70.
Yeah.
Like, people are looking at 75 now. Like, people wanna see him hit 82. Like, it's possible. Like, that's insane.
Yeah,
Like,
actually, like
I
it's do
don't
I
know if
think
he's
like
gonna
it's
do it, but he's after 55 games, he's only 3 goals back of that, and he is so capable of putting up at least 3 goals in a night.
yeah.
Like,
Yeah, um it's just absurd the pace he's on. And something I actually I'm just looking at because I just like to look back on it. So looking at the 2016 draft, that's obviously when Matthews went first, and as we know, since then nobody has scored more goals in the entire league than him from that time point. Um, it's pretty crazy when you look at the top 16 of that draft. And another reason I'm bringing this up is because there's a lot of good young prospects that could be moved um, at the deadline this year. And it's to look back at this draft, it shows that top prospects are being traded a lot more nowadays. I mean, it is 2016, but so you had Matthews at 1, who obviously we know what he's doing.
yeah.
Patrick Laine was 2. He got traded. Pierre-Luc Dubois was 3rd overall. He's been traded twice. Jesse Puljujarvi has been traded, and he's now actually on his 3rd team after Carolina didn't re-sign him. Olli Juolevi has been traded. I'm not even sure what he's doing anymore. Matthew Tkachuk was 6. We know obviously he was traded to Florida. Clayton Keller, 7. He's one of the few guys that actually is still with his team. He's stuck with the Coyotes through thick and thin there. Alex Nylander went 8th overall. He's been traded 3 times, most notably last night. Actually, he was traded for the 3rd time.
Excellent
9th,
segue.
Mikhail Sergachev, obviously traded to Tampa. Number 10, Tyson Jost. He was traded 2 years ago, I think. 11, Logan Brown. Obviously, he was traded out of Ottawa. Number 12,
Wow.
Michael McLeod. Obviously, we know what's going on with that. 13, Jake Bean was traded from out of Carolina. 14, Charlie McAvoy, one of the best two-way defenders in the game now. Still with Boston as well. 15, Luke Cunnin. He's been traded twice. And then 16, Jacob Chikrin has been traded. So, like,
Wow. You were not getting
only,
I was
yeah.
expecting, like a good string of them at the start because I know some of those names a bit better, but how many guys at the end were on their original team? Matthews,
Uh,
Keller,
4.
McAvoy?
4. I mean, if you include McLeod, but like he wasn't traded out of New Jersey, but he's not part of the Devils anymore in any way.
He's not there
So
anymore.
really, yeah, only 3 of the top 16 are still
Good
playing
chance
on
he
their
just screwed
original
himself
team.
out of a cup.
Yeah, if they get a goalie.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's crazy. I mean, it is 2016, so like it is like 8 years ago. But the fact of like that only 3
Those
of
are
the
the
top
the
16 are
the
still.
top 16 guys, those are the 16 guys NHL teams deemed most likely to be the best guys from that draft, and
Yeah.
yeah, they, like, all got moved, and, some of them are a bit different circumstances, I don't know how much, the Canadians wanted to move Sergachev, but, uh, Tampa offered him, uh, Jonathan Drouin, so I think that was kind of a offer they couldn't refuse, but
Yeah, they were getting a good, East Coast Canadian kid, and that was kind of the point in time where Montreal really wasn't. They were going through that phase in time there where it was they only really wanted Canadians. More specifically, they wanted French Canadians, and they really didn't
they
care too much to have Russian players on their team.
yeah.
Like
Not to
they
mention
would have them, but if they were to move him, they were like, all right, yeah, let's do it. Like
Yeah,
they
they
didn't
would
have
never
any.
commit that guy to being kind of the core, and
Yeah,
they not to mention they were still very in the middle of the Carey Price era, and they needed scoring. They
yeah,
they never had that top 10 talent, and I'm sure that's what they wanted Drouin to be,
yeah,
but that is crazy how many of those guys have been moved and how many got
yeah,
moved early on.
yeah, yeah. Exactly right. Um, what other news
Um,
do we got here before we
we got
have
a
some
couple
mock
more
trades?
things. Uh, absolute hockey legend, Jaromir Jagr, finally has his jersey number 68 retired by the Pittsburgh Penguins. Um, Not that they were waiting because they didn't know if they were going to retire it. Uh, he's just still playing hockey. He's like what, 55, 56,
Yeah,
and he just wouldn't stop. I saw a stat the other day. Notorious oldest player in the league, Mark Giordano, was I believe 9 years old when Yager was drafted, and Yager's
yeah.
still playing professionally. Like,
The Yager even made a joke during his speech that everybody loved. The girl he's dating, she wasn't even born when he was drafted into the league.
yeah, right.
She was born,
Like,
I think it was like 95 or something. Like she's quite a bit younger than him. So he even made a joke that she probably doesn't even remember his. Well, she wouldn't remember his days playing for the Penguins because she obviously wasn't born yet,
yeah.
or was still very young, I guess.
Sorry, I actually had it wrong. It's actually more ludicrous. Uh, Giordano was 6 years old when Yager was drafted.
Yeah, like that's
Giordano's 40.
so when you
And
put in that into perspective, Zdeno Char was like 1 or 2.
yeah,
Like, yeah, that's pretty absurd, but nonetheless, and I liked what Pittsburgh did too. The players came out for warm-ups. They were wearing like they had like the mullets on, and I think
classic.
Yager even
I think he took the ice with him.
he took part in warm-ups with them.
Dude,
So
you can't keep that guy off the ice. Like,
yeah,
that's
no,
one thing people have said consistently about him his entire career. They're like, he dude knows the talent he has and he knows what he has to do to keep it. Like, he
yeah,
they're like he's there was a interview recently. I'm not sure the name of the player because he's not on a professional contract over in North America, but he's playing for Yager's team over in the European League, and he's like, this dude is so much older than all of us, and he is the first one on the ice, last off every time. Like,
yeah,
the
yeah,
he just dude just lives, eats, sleeps, breathes hockey, and
yeah,
it's wild. It's wild to see. He just outweighted the Pittsburgh Penguins as an organization until they were like, "We'll just retire it anyway, even though you're still playing." Like, they just gave up waiting
yeah.
because he'll just go forever, dude.
Yeah, they had no idea when he was gonna ever hang him up, so they just caved and said, "All right, let's just do it now."
Yeah, and funny other thing that happened with that. Apparently, is he R&B? Is he hip hop? I don't know. Music artist Drake was apparently upset at Yager because I guess he had a concert the same night as the jersey retirement. And I guess Yager booked him and all his boys all the best rooms at Drake's favorite hotel.
Oh,
So
really?
apparently Drake was kind of cheesed, and Yager, he doesn't fucking care.
Yeah, I wouldn't give a
You
shit.
you can't pay Yager to care about other people's opinions on shit like that, but
Yeah,
that was a funny read to come across. That he was like, you can't book all the nicest rooms at this hotel. And he's like, I'm Yarmir Yager. I can do what I want.
yeah,
Especially in Pittsburgh, he can do what he wants.
yeah. Oh, yeah. Of all places, he can get away with doing whatever. Just quickly run this up because I don't. We're pretty sure we didn't cover it. But we'll run back to it just in case. But the Flames had signed a contract extension with Ford Martin Pospisil. It's a 2-year contract extension, 1 million per year. Great signing for them. He's a great young player, and he's only going to get better. And to have him on a cheap 2-year deal like this, I loved it for the Flames. Obviously, he's going to get quite a nice payday after that 2-year deal, but
Yeah.
great move for the Flames. He's going to be a great player for them throughout this contract and probably the next one he signs.
Yeah.
Don't have too much to say on it.
I think underratedly, this is the perfect term for a player like this. I don't think the money matters too much because I don't think they're going to be looking to seriously contend in the next 2 years that much.
Yeah, I
They might
don't
make the
think
playoffs,
so.
but I don't think they're looking for a deep run. Like they're not going to be buying at the deadline. And so I think 2 years is perfect because that's just enough time for him to prove how good he is over that time and get a long extension. But it's not a 3 or 4 bridge deal where afterwards he'd be getting paid. You know, I
Yeah,
think it leaves just enough that like after this you can sign him to 6, 7 or 8 years, but I think won't quite have. You'll have a long enough track record to know what you're getting, but not long enough that he can be like, I did this 5 years in a row. I need the big payday. And I think this is the perfect contract to set them up to get a really nice deal on their next one as well.
hmm Well, and it's also worth noting that it's a 2-year deal, right? If it was a 3-year deal, he would be a UFA at the end of that deal. But
Yeah,
because it's 2 years, he'll still be an RFA, so the Flames will still control his rights. So makes it a
which
little bit
is
easier to
very
sign
important
him
for them,
because you
for the
don't got to
Flames
worry about
especially.
outside teams coming in to try and snake him. And if it doesn't work and he wants out or the Flames are ready to move on from him, you can easily move him at the draft or whatever and send to a team because then that team will hold his rights. So it's a nice situation for the Flames and it works out quite well for them. Not as much of the player because again they're an RFA. But yeah, like you said, it's going to set them up nice to get a good contract. Either way, whether it's from the Flames or from some other team.
Yeah. Um, Looks like we have two things left before we get into the mock trades. Um, uh, the owner was saying in the Winnipeg Jets owner was saying in a recent press release that the current attendance for them is quote not going to work long term. The Jets season ticket base has fallen from around 13,000 uh, per year to around 9,500 in the last 3 years. It sounds like they took a big hit from obviously COVID and the pandemic. Um,
hmm
and that sucks to hear, right? Like because the Jets are a very passionate fan base and they've been great this year. This is the best year they've had in a long time, and it sucks to hear that they're still struggling with ticket sales and stuff. They are reportedly, I believe, third last in the league for attendance, only being underattended by San Jose and Buffalo, which is tough for Buffalo as well because they're also, they're not doing great, but they're looking to take the next step, looking better than they have uh, in the past decade.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's always especially sketchy with a team like the Jets because, of course, they relocated from uh, Atlanta, and you don't. They're such a passionate fan base, and you don't want to see this team have to start throwing around the idea of do we move again because
Yeah.
that that would clearly suck. We've seen the whiteout in the playoffs. We've seen how passionate this fan base can be, and how absolutely absolutely bonkers this crowd could go, and it would really suck to see the team's future be in jeopardy because of attendance numbers like that.
Yeah. Well, and I don't think it's just a big issue to worry about too much. Like obviously, it's there's going to be talks about it and rumors flying, but the fact of like that they've shown that players are committed to actually wanting to be there and play there, like signing Scheifele and Hellebuck to those big extensions. And now, the Jets were kind of, uh, it was kind of like 2017, 2018, they kind of reached their peak and then they've kind of come back down. But now they're right back on that rise and up kind of near the top. Like if they're if they've now got this core that's gonna have them top of the Central every year in the playoffs, I think you'll see those season tickets. They'll go right back up.
Yeah.
Because a lot of it really comes down to the product that the team is putting out there, and if they're putting out a winning product and a good product every season, naturally you're going to bring in more fans, and then that'll lead to more season ticket buyers. So
That's true, and I am not in tax bracket to be know much about season tickets, but I got to imagine season ticket sales drop quite a bit throughout the year. You're not who's buying a season ticket in December, so
yeah,
I got to imagine after this full year of them being, having those long-term extensions, the team being very good, especially if they get a good playoff run. I think at the start of the next year, hopefully, we'll see some better numbers over in Winnipeg.
yeah, yeah. 100% we will. Yeah, I got to imagine it'll after this season that you'll see a nice increase there.
Yeah, and the only other thing we got here on the docket, Noah Hannafin reportedly wants to play for the Tampa Bay Lightning.
Yeah, which leads perfectly into one of the mock trades actually that I've got here.
Yeah, you know
Um,
what? We can keep talking about it with the mock trade if you want. If you want to jump right into that.
yeah, so the first thing I'll say is because I know a lot of people think that it's going to happen, but I'm not even going to go down that road. That being a mock trade revolving Noah Hannafin going to Toronto, like a lot of Toronto fans want. It's not going to happen because the price Toronto would have to get up to get him, and the fact that he wouldn't sign an extension there. Hannafin's made it pretty well known now that
Yeah, he wants to go
he's
to
not he's
America.
not signing with a Canadian team. So if Toronto wants to give up the farm to get him for one first round playoff exit, I mean they can, but
Yeah.
that's just realistically not going to happen.
It sounds like he had all but one Canadian team on his no trade list. And I I don't know much about the trade no trade lists, but I wonder if on his no trade list is a team like uh Vancouver or Toronto that isn't on it just because he's like they won't be able to get me, so I'm going to put another team I don't want to go to that could afford me on my no trade list.
Yeah, I'm not too sure how it. I think it's at the beginning of the season. Teams like players submit their
That's fair.
their
Right, right.
list, and then the teams got it for the year to work with. But this first mock trade does have Noah Hannafin going to the Tampa Bay Lightning. It is just Noah Hannafin. Um, you might know this guy's. I've never seen his name.
Sure.
So in exchange, it's Noah Hannafin to Tampa Bay for Emil Martinson Lilberg.
Lilleberg has been fantastic for the Lightning in the past month. Never heard of him before, 2 months ago. We had enough injuries on the blue line that we brought him up in very good hockey IQ, just solid defensively, hits people, doesn't take shit from the other team. Not quite enforcer, but like not afraid to get in there.
Mhm.
Uh, he's fine in the offensive zone, but he's very good defensively.
Okay. So it's him going back to Calgary with Ethan Gauthier, Isaac Howard, and a conditional 2025 second round pick, which would end up becoming a 2026 first round pick if Noah Hannafin re signed with Tampa. I
That's
don't like this for Tampa. I think
no,
if
I
you
think
do
that's
that, you completely like the cabinets are then dry. You've
yeah.
got no draft picks, no prospects. Like Noah Hannafin's a good player, but to give up your entire
Gautier
um,
is one of our
system
better
like is
prospects, and Howard is our best prospect.
Yeah,
at
and
the
then not to
moment.
mention potentially a. I mean, if they're trading for Hannafin, he
The
wants to
whole
play there. It would be he would sign an
yeah,
extension. So
we
call
wouldn't
it a
just
2026 first on
yeah,
top of that.
we wouldn't be doing the trade without him extending because we're not looking for a deep playoff run this year without
Yeah,
Sergachev, I don't think. Even if we get Hanifin, that's still a downgrade from Sergachev, and at least in my opinion, so I don't see it affecting the team too much unless you get that extension, and that's a lot to give up. As well as Lilleberg has been very good. I think he's going to crack the top four next year. Honestly, he's been very solid on our blue line, and that's it's partially because of what we'd have to give up, and partially because of where Tampa is at the moment. Um,
yeah,
yeah, Hannafin's a player I'd love to get on the Lightning, but I just don't know if Tampa's in a good spot to make it work right now.
yeah, yeah. No, I'm not too I'm not too high on that for Tampa. I don't think that is a deal that really makes much sense for them, and I don't see them um,
Yeah, and
doing
I
that.
do think Calgary would also have to take some cap back. I think
Yeah,
I
they
think
probably retain half of his remaining year of
no,
his
I
deal though.
mean take like they take back Sheary in the deal maybe, or hell even you might have to take Isaac Howard out of that deal, and fuck, I hate to say it, but you might have to throw an Eric Chernak in there to make the numbers work. Like
I don't think Calgary would do it at that point then though.
yeah, I don't think they would either.
And when that's the thing, right? If you're including Connor Sheary, then you have to throw in even more value to offset, to kind of compensate Calgary
Yeah,
for taking on that. So it would be a weird deal. I don't see it happening. At least if it does, I don't see it being for
yeah.
that price. I
I think
think,
they just have so much. They have a lot. Tampa has a lot of reasons to think they can compete next year. Um, but right now, I think it's try and make the playoffs, see how it goes, and prepare to make a run for the cup next year.
yeah,
So paying that much for a 1 year rental that we can extend, but I don't think
yeah,
it would work out. Obviously, as well because the team would obviously like to be able to re-sign Stamkos in the
yeah,
offseason, and that's going to eat up a lot of our cap.
yeah, yeah, exactly. The next one I have here, this one is involving the other Flames defenseman who will be traded. I got two here involving him. So the first one is Chris Tanev to the Toronto Maple Leafs for a 20. What would the year be? It just says first round pick, but I know Toronto's first round picks are a little bit
I'll
uh,
take a look for
all
that.
over the place. Oh, so they do have their first this year. Okay. So it would be Toronto's 2024 first round pick and Topi Niemela going to the Calgary Flames in exchange for Chris Tanev. Um,
Do you know
what are your
much
thoughts
about
on
this
that?
Topi Niemela?
Yeah, so he's um again, anytime you talk about a prospect from Toronto, you have to take what they say with a grain of salt because they talk about how Topi Nemo has um, just this absurd value. When
Yeah.
in reality, I mean, he is
It
21 now.
yeah.
He's yet to play an NHL game. He's put up respectable numbers in the AHL for a defenseman, 27 points in 45 games. But again, like the Toronto fan base, they overvalue their prospects. Like they thought Matthew Nyes was going to be a shoe in for a Calder finalist. He's not even in the top 15 conversation. So
Yeah, and
I still like it for Calgary though.
I think a large amount of that is also just because they're the biggest fan base. They have the most people, which means they obviously have the most shitheads uh, being loud online, right? Like
Yeah.
it's pretty hard to get away from loud, obnoxious Toronto fans, but that's just because there's so many of them.
Well, and the Leafs can
There's
do no
plenty of them
wrong,
that
right?
know what's going on.
Yeah. But in terms of that deal, I love it for Calgary. I think even
Yeah,
if you can move Tanev for a first, I think is awesome. If you can get a prospect on top of that, I'd say Niemela's probably I would say he's a B prospect.
I was going to say, I
He's
do
definitely
think
not an A.
they
I'd
should.
have him as a B.
I think they should try and get more than just a first. Just because anywhere that they're sending
Yeah.
Tanev, it's going to be obviously a bottom 16 pick. Uh, that meaning, set pick 17 to 32 in the first
Yeah.
round because you're not taking them to not go to the playoffs.
Well, and Tana's probably, in my opinion, I think he's probably like the top guy on the trade board. I think the level of play he's at right now and what he brings to a team, I think holds just for this season, at least for the playoffs and whatnot. I think he has the most value. And that is, I guess, largely depending on whether or not Jacob Markstrom gets traded. But so you're going to have multiple teams in there, going for Tanev, and that's just going to drive the price up. So if Calgary's set on getting at least a first for him, teams are going to start there, and then it's just going to build up. So they're obviously going to get more than a first in the end. It really just comes down to the bidding war between teams and what that where that kind of leads.
Yeah, and especially with you know, Tanev is not a guy that you see going around very much. Like there's some very good players like that in the league, but the only even close to comparable at this year's deadline would be Sean Walker, I think. Um, and
Yeah.
it's hard to tell if Philly's even looking to sell right now because they're not looking too bad. Um,
I mean, Sean Walker, I think will get moved regardless, just because it sounds like he's not going to re-sign with the Flyers,
oh, okay.
and I think Philly knows like they're obviously not winning the cup, and if you can get a second and a good prospect, or even what they're asking for, potentially a first for him, is like that's huge, and you can't pass up on that,
Yeah,
regardless of whether or not you're in a playoff spot, like because again, they're even if they make the playoffs, like they're not they're not pulling off what Florida did last year and then one-upping it and winning it all this year. So you gotta get what you can for a guy before he's gone.
yeah,
Uh,
that's fair.
Um, and then the other deal involving Chris Tanev. This one comes. Chris Tanev. Oh, also should mention that the Toronto one was at 50% retained. This one is also Chris Tanev at 50% retained, going to the Dallas Stars in exchange
Ooh,
for a 2024 second round pick and defenseman Nils Lundqvist. Which, I mean, you're not getting the first for Tanev, but you are getting a guy that I think still has a lot of value. He's been struggling a bit with Dallas, but Nils Lundqvist is a former first round pick, actually of the Rangers, which I think he could fill that void of on the right side for the Flames. He's still young, still could definitely reach that next level. Um, I think between the two, I think I would still go the Toronto one just because I think the Flames
yeah,
would rather get a first and then they can draft their own young prospect and build them up and have them be much younger than where Nils Lundqvist is at. 'Cause I think he's 24 now,
yeah, and
if I'm not
this will be his
mistaken.
third team now, and not to mention, it's not the same division, I suppose, but sending a guy to the other conference is always a little bit more tempting. Um,
Yeah,
Personally, I know a lot of people don't have this opinion, but personally, I think teams should not look at that stuff unless they are trading a massive player. Um, but a lot of teams do look at that pretty closely. So,
yeah, yeah,
yeah. In my opinion, if it makes your team better, who cares where the other guy's going unless it's, the level of sending Matthew Kachuk to the Canucks or something like that.
yeah,
Because
exactly.
that would make you suffer for some years. But,
Yeah,
uh, a Lindholm on 1 year, no problem.
yeah. So this is the last one of kind of the ones by fans, and then I've got a couple other ones that are through guys with Sportsnet. So this last one is Jake Gensel
Did you make
at.
any of these on your own? Just wondering.
No, I haven't made any of these ones.
Okay.
No. And then this last one is Jake Gensel at 50% retained, going to the Edmonton Oilers in exchange for Dylan Holloway, Warren Fogle, Xavier Bourgault, and a 2024 first round pick. It's kind of a lot for Edmonton to give up. Kind of probably two of their best prospects in Holloway and Bourgault, and then especially a first, and then Warren Fogle, who I think is just to kind of make the numbers work. He's obviously playing very well for the Oilers right now, but he would be the guy expendable. But again, like if you get Jay Gensel, that immediately probably makes you especially where they're at now after their win streak, it probably makes them the favorite in the West and kind of helps you reach that next level now where
Absolutely.
you don't have to, you know, have McDavid and Draisaitl be together to when you need offense. You know, you can still roll them on two separate lines and Gensel with one, and then
You can still argue
Hyman with.
who has the top 6 forward core in the league. There's a lot of teams in on that, you know. You can argue a Toronto, you can currently argue in Edmonton, Vancouver, Colorado, but if that
I
trade
wouldn't do Colorado just because Colorado's one line. Like it's
I
one
guess it's
line.
a lot harder, especially with Landeskog out long
Yeah.
term. But if they make this trade, that argument becomes pretty hard not to give to Edmonton. If your
Yeah.
first line is Gensel, McDavid, Zach Hyman, and your second line is Draisaitl, Nugent Hopkins, and Evander Kane,
No one
holy
touches
shit,
that. No one touches that.
that's a hard team to play against.
And then not to mention on defense, you would have Bouchard. I mean, Nurse is overpaid, but he's still a good player. Ekholm, like that would make Edmonton like a scary team.
Yeah, you think Draisaitl's ever upset that he paid less than Nurse?
Uh, it's a good question.
He's probably more upset he doesn't have a cup, but you know.
Yeah. But again, I mean, it's a lot for Edmonton to give up, but I think you get Gensel, so that immediately makes you kind of the cup favorite. And again, if you win a cup, who gives a shit what you sent out to little old Pittsburgh out there? So I like that deal for both teams. I think
Edmonton needs to win. At some point, you need to win with these guys that you have.
yeah.
And that could be a guy that pushes them over the edge. Was Gensel around for Pittsburgh's Cups? Does he have a Stanley Cup?
He had to have been, right, or maybe he was just coming up.
Jake
Double
Gensel
check
Cups.
here.
Gensel does not have.
He must have. He came in. Yep. So the year, yeah. So his first year was when they won their second one, beating Nashville in the finals. That's where he really kind of came in the playoffs and just steamrolled, like 13 goals in 25 playoff games, 21 points.
Fuck, like he's a good player. Don't get me wrong, but man, what luck to go from in your rookie year winning a cup with Crosby. Oh fuck, I'm getting traded from Sidney Crosby's line. Are you kidding me? Goes plays with Connor McDavid.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah. And I think where Pittsburgh's at, if they keep going downhill, like I think as much as they would like to keep Gensel, I think they'd kind of, if he's asking for too much, I think they kind of realize that they're gonna have to move on from him. And if you are, like, you got to get, if you got to wait right until the 11th hour.
For a guy like Gensel, do you think? For an extension, sorry.
For an extension, I mean,
because
it's tough to say because
for the 8 years.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing, right? Is a large part of it would have to be, what team he goes to. Like, obviously, Edmonton couldn't afford to give him an 8-year, $10 million per year. But I think there are other.
Do you think he gets double digits?
I think there's a team out there that would give him 8 years at well, I guess not 8, because if he goes to free agency, it could only be 7. But I could see a team giving him 10. Okay. I think for what he's done, he's a point per guy in the playoffs. He's a consistent 30
great goal scorer.
30 to 40 goal scorer, point per game. Like, that's I could see, if he stays with Pittsburgh, I don't think he gets that. If he goes to Edmonton and resigns there, he doesn't get that. But if he goes to the open market, there's a team out there, I think, that would give him would offer him 10.
Yeah, I think open market he can get 10. I think if he wants to go to a current contender, I think he'd have to take something closer to 9. Um,
Yeah,
if he goes to a contender and he gets 9 by 8, I think that works out well for both sides.
yeah, yeah. If you can get Gensel at 9, that's a very good deal there.
Yeah. And it's a lot easier for a team like obviously not with their cap situation, but a team like Edmonton, it would be a lot easier to make a contract like that just because some other teams are going to go, well, we don't have Sidney Crosby at first center. So can he reproduce that with us? But if you've got Connor McDavid up there and Drysaitel on the second line, you don't have to worry about what talent he's playing with.
Yeah,
You know he can play with guys like this. So
yeah,
that
yeah,
uh that would be very interesting. And I I think Edmonton should pull the trigger on that trade. 100%.
yeah, yeah. If I'm Edmonton, I'm 100% doing
Yeah.
that. And if I'm Pittsburgh, I'm that's not a bad return at all as well.
Yeah. I'm looking at their cap friendly. 4 more years of 3.85 from Jack Campbell. That's going to hurt you long term. And in 2 years, you got a UFA in Draisaitl. In 2 years, you got an RFA that is getting a massive pay increase in Evan Bouchard. Even if they manage to keep Draisaitl and Bouchard, they're paying them way more than they are for both guys.
Well, and
Both
that's the
guys,
thing.
both
If
guys are getting minimum like $4 million raises. So
yeah,
it's at that point, either they're losing somebody good or they are tying up all their money. You gotta win before 2025.
yeah. Well, and that's the thing. If they trade for Gensel, and you sign him, that really puts them in a bind when you've got those three big deals coming up over the next couple of years, being the Draisaitl and then Bouchard and then McDavid like that. It could make it tough. So that's why I'm not sure. If they get Gensel, I think they're gonna have to try and underpay him to get him to stick around, because if you give him that 9 to 10, that really puts you in a tough spot when you've got those other deals coming up in the next couple years.
Yeah, and
But yeah,
especially
they
and
gotta win. They're in win now. Like
if
you've
they
gotta.
if they win a cup, I think immediately it's okay. We don't have to worry. McDavid and Drysaitel are probably going to resign. They're not going to walk anymore. I think it's still possible that they walk if they don't win the cups. I think they'll probably stay, but it's a lot more certain if they've got that cup and they're not looking for it.
Yeah,
And especially with McDavid, obviously they want to resign him, but if one of Bouchard or Drysaitel walks because they're not getting their money, then maybe it's not looking as fun to stick around, you know?
yeah,
That's one of your boys and it's one of the guys that helped drive the team. It's a very complicated situation over there. They got a lot of important things running out soon. And they've got a couple contracts that go for a long time that aren't great in, the Nurse contract and the Jack Campbell contract. Um yeah, they they got to win.
yeah,
And they're they don't have near as similar a thing going on as Toronto, where it's they finally broke out of the first round last year. Like Edmonton has not won it yet, but I think it's only trolls online who are saying, "Oh, they're never going to win a cup," because
yeah,
they've consistently gone to the second or third round. They've consistently had success in the playoffs. They just haven't won it all.
yeah,
And anyone who's saying like, McDavid's not good enough because he doesn't carry his team. Dude scores at like 2 points per game or more every playoff run.
yeah,
Like what do you want him to do?
yeah,
Like the next level from that is Gretzky numbers. Like nobody does what he does in the playoffs and the team still can't win. So, and a lot of it's obviously goaltending, goaltending will hold up for 2 rounds, but then in the third round it'll kind of fall apart, but
yeah,
It'll it'll be interesting. I'm very excited for the playoffs this year.
yeah. Oh, for sure. So only got three of these mock trades left for this one. Probably next week is kind of right when we'll be a week out from the trade deadline. So that one will probably be like just solely focused on kind of stuff for the trade deadline. So now these three are coming straight from Sportsnet and some of their writers. So the first one here is I'll start with this one because this one really doesn't make sense. Um, so it's Anaheim is trading Trevor Zegras to the
Okay.
St. Louis Blues in
Ooh.
exchange for Jimmy Snuggerud, St. Louis's 2024 first round pick, which is top 10 protected, and then defenseman Marco Scandella. I mean, for, I mean, if I'm Anaheim, I would probably take it and run with it. If I'm St. Louis, I'm not even considering it.
Really?
Uh,
I'm looking at it the other way
no,
around.
Jimmy
I'm,
Snuggerud
I was gonna
is going
say
to
I'm
be
not very
10
familiar with
times the
these guys.
player. Yeah, he's going to be a better player in my opinion than Zegras. Um, like I mean, Zegras is it kind of fits the timeline that the Blues are in, but also Jimmy Snuggerud does, and then a first round pick on top of that. Um, yeah, I don't know, and maybe it's just because I'm so high on Snuggerud, um, that I don't think I would do it if I'm St. Louis. I
Right.
mean, obviously, you
And
know what you're getting in
that's probably
Zegras, but
the main part of it. How much do you think his game's gonna
yeah,
transition to the NHL? Has he played it all in the NHL, or is he still like full
no,
prospect?
he's still a full prospect.
Right. I I think a lot of people are underrating Trevor Zegras in general right now. I think I think a lot of people are like he's overrated and stuff, but that's because some marketing dude put him on the cover of the game, right?
See,
Like
if anything, I
he's
think
he's
people
20
are overrating
he's
him
22
still.
years old and he's put up multiple 60-point seasons. I'm pretty sure he has a couple of those in his pocket, and he's signed for a very reasonable contract at 5.75 mil for the next 3 years, and he's even an RFA at the end of that. Like, you're getting a great player. You know what you're getting. Who has more
Yeah,
upside? He's still young and a good contract, RFA status. Like that's all the stuff you want.
it's not to say that he's a bad player or anything. I think people are still just like they're overvaluing him. Like a lot of the mock trades I'm seeing, like obviously there's a million one surrounding Montreal, but like a lot of them
Right.
are like Montreal's trading Lane Hudson in a first, which makes no sense for Montreal. Like, why would you trade, probably one of the top three defensive prospects in the league and a first round pick
I was
for
gonna say a
Zegras like
trade like
that?
that definitely should be closer to Zegras for Hudson, one for one. I don't
I
think
still
that
wouldn't
they
even do that
need.
if I was Montreal.
Yeah, but
Like, that's
it's a lot.
that's still,
But it's a lot. You can make the argument a lot easier without that extra first
yeah,
thrown in there. I get Zegras has shown that he can be in the NHL, obviously, but a lot of
yeah,
these high end talents, it's the writing's on the wall of this guy's going to make it. That being said,
yeah,
for every 10 guys like that, there's a couple Lafrenaires who they make it, but they don't look like what you thought they were going to.
yeah. Yeah, like, do I think Zegers gets traded? I don't think he does at the deadline. I think if anything, he would probably get moved at like the draft or something if they
Yeah,
even decide to end up moving him.
yeah,
And I think the value they're probably going to get back is probably going to be, I would say, first, obviously, and then maybe an A minus prospect, or you could go the route of like two kind of B level prospects. I think would kind of be where. And if they move him at the deadline, they're obviously going to have to take a contract back from someone. And in this case, with St. Louis, it's Marco Scandella because with Zegers' cap hit, there's not many teams that can just take that whole um, contract on. They would
full
need to move
contract
something
without
out.
any other numbers being moved. Yeah.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
I completely agree about them not moving him right now. I can't remember where I put it. I might have tweeted out or something, but there's so much talk about Zegras right now, but they should not feel pressured in the slightest. He looks like he's going to be good in the future. He's 22 years old. You're not a team that has any cap issues whatsoever, and
Yeah,
he's an R 3 years left. Like I said, RFA. Nothing about this situation says we got to move him right fucking now.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, yeah. They're
unless
no
it's to
need
get
to.
another guy who might get traded from where he's at, and that other trade piece is the reason, you don't need to rush with this Zegras move.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Exactly. The next one I have has the Devils acquiring a goaltender. So the New Jersey
Good, good.
Devils acquire UC Saros
Ooh.
and defenseman Alexander Carrier at 50% retained on Carrier. In
That
exchange,
would put Carrier at like 1 mil, right? I think he's making
yeah,
like 2 mil, something like that.
yeah. And then, so that's going to New Jersey. And then going back to Nashville would be Dawson Mercer, New Jersey's first round pick in 2025. That's top five protected, just in case. Goaltender Vitek Vanacek, goaltender Akira Schmid, and defenseman
Both goalies.
Seamus Casey. Um,
Okay.
it's
Is Seamus Casey a former first round pick?
I believe he's a second round pick, but like you can basically say he's a first round pick. Like where he's at, he holds the value of a
Right.
former first round.
So they're getting Saros and Carrier, and they're giving up both their goalies?
Yeah.
Is that just to make the numbers work? Do they
That
both have
would
like decent contracts?
be my guess. I think Vanacek's got. Actually, I think Vanacek might be on the last year of his. Uh, so
Devils.
Vanacek's got 2 years left at 3.4. And
Okay. So
then
moving that makes absolutely sense for
and then
sure.
Schmid, he's just got 1 year left. He's making league min. I think it's really just because um, Nico Dawes has come in and is kind of been carrying the workload, and so obviously they would want to keep him on, and so
That's
you
fair.
move out the other guys to just make it work, so then you can roll with Dawes and Saros. I don't I don't mind this trade. I think if you're Nashville, I mean, getting Mercer, Casey, so that's like a great centerman you've now got for the next 15 years. That's a defenseman you've got for the next 15 years. A first round pick that can become whatever. And then I mean, Vanacek is obviously you're taking on his contract, and then Schmid is a goalie prospect. I mean, they've already got Askarov, who's going to be their guy. So I don't mind this deal for either team. I think even
No,
Nashville could maybe
that
be
is
like, hey, we're taking on Vanacek's contract, and so maybe you got to give us like an extra second round pick or a B level prospect. I think could.
yeah.
But like for New Jersey, I mean that helps them out on defense with Carrier. Saros obviously is a huge upgrade net for them, which is where they're really struggling. So
Yeah, I think this works well for both teams. Um it's it's a decent amount of stuff to take back in Nashville, but at the same time, they're not looking to contend right away. I think Barry Trotz is not somebody who likes going for the full rebuild.
yeah,
Um
yeah,
so he's not gutting it down to nothing. He's
yeah,
put together a better team than I think anyone thought Nashville would have this year, and they've done better than anyone thought. Um,
yeah,
but they they got a decently bright looking future, and that would help a lot.
yeah.
Um,
That would help accelerate this little retool that they're going through. Especially when it's like, I mean, you lose Saros, like, yeah, that sucks. He's a good goalie, but at the
yeah,
same time, you've got one of the best goalie prospects in the world in your system and coming up to replace that. So
yeah,
you're just bringing in, these other assets on forward and defense to help fill out
yeah,
the team.
yeah. Askarov, who's just like we said earlier, has backstopped the Admirals to the second longest win streak in AHL history. Like
Yeah.
he's looked to be good every step of the way, and
Yeah, last night must have been crazy because they win 18 in a row to move into second all time. Cody Hodgson scores a goal that obviously was incredible to see that happen, and then Askarov got a shutout. So it's like it was I mean,
Everything
if
looks
you're
great.
if you're a Milwaukee Admirals fan, you probably had a good time watching the game or at the game.
Yeah.
And then this is the last one from Sportsnet, and
Oh,
I think,
ooh, sorry, I did not see this. I might have just missed this if you said that. But Saros has 2 years left.
yeah,
It's not just the one. That's those are the trades that can really be nice, especially if they retain 50%. Getting UC Saros for 2 years at 2.5 mil, that's that's a recipe for
yeah,
success right there. Like that's looking
yeah,
real nice.
yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, move on to cut you off there. Move on to the next one here.
Oh, I just well, that's
Do we got breaking news?
oh yeah, it's
Oh
not
no, it
good
doesn't.
news.
I was gonna say it doesn't sound very good.
It's ooh yeah, that's um. So I mean, I don't even know where to. This isn't a mock trade. This is just breaking news. It's like just happening.
Yeah.
So the Calgary Flames, we know obviously earlier this year, uh, they were really high on Adam Ruzicka. Things didn't work out. They put him on waivers. He was claimed by the Arizona Coyotes about like a month ago, I think.
Yeah.
Um, as of 30 seconds ago now here, the Arizona Coyotes have placed forward Adam Ruzicka on waivers for the purpose of contract termination.
Uh-oh.
This comes after Adam Ruzicka. I'm assuming he didn't mean to, but on his Instagram story,
Oh,
he
jeez.
had posted a video of him sitting at what looks like to be a kitchen counter, um, with a credit card on the counter and some drugs, and then the camera pans over to him with a lighter, putting it in his mouth. Um, so he is getting his contract terminated from the Coyotes. Obviously due to posting a video of him. I mean, not doing drugs in the video, but one can assume what is
Dude,
taking
how
place there.
stupid do you have to be in one of the big 4 North American sports leagues and post that shit online?
Yeah,
I mean, just don't do it in general, but, like, good god, there I'm just imagining, like, how does this go? Did some like, it was on his account. So, first it went, "Hey, let's do drugs." And then it goes, "Hey, take a video of me doing these drugs." Then he goes on Instagram and he's like, "I'm gonna post this." I'm just imagining all the times he could have been like, "This is so fucking stupid of me."
yeah,
Oh,
man, it's
that's and I imagine it's a lot harder to tell that stuff when you're on drugs, but
yeah.
oh, that's tough.
So that's our breaking news.
Ruzicka, he was doing well for the Flames, right? Like he wasn't
Not really.
world beating or nothing, but
He
like
he was good last year and was expected, I think, to kind of come and take a the next step this year, and then
and he
he
kind of took a bit of a step back.
a little bit of a step back, and then you've got guys like Zeri and
Yeah,
Pospisillo come in and really
that's fair.
kind of
They
took
kind of
those
took his
spots
spot.
that yeah.
Yeah,
So yeah, so
it makes
that's news
makes
going
it
on right
hard to
now in
wonder
Arizona.
when other guys came in and took the spot better. They probably moved on from him just because of his play, but you always got to wonder when stuff like this comes out. Did they know,
Yeah,
or like was he a bit of a problematic guy? Did he come in late to a couple practices? He looked a little disheveled, and they were kind of like, "We don't like how this is looking," or
yeah,
was it purely on ice?
yeah.
Um, I guess
But
good for the Coyotes for doing the right thing and going to
yeah,
terminate the contract. And thank God they didn't trade for him; they just picked him up off waivers.
yeah, yeah, exactly right. Um, so aside from that, only one mock trade left, and then we'll just roll into the stats leaders, and then
Sure.
head out of here. So this last one is a fun one from Sportsnet because it's a 3-team deal, which are always fun to see.
Yes, love
So the
these.
3 teams in this deal being the Detroit Red Wings, the Calgary Flames, and then the San Jose Sharks. And this is interesting because it kind of works. It makes sense for every team the way that this kind of goes. So the Detroit Red Wings is defenseman Noah Hannafin. Obviously, Hannafin has made an only want he's only going to sign with an American team, and the Detroit Red Wings are interested in him. So it is Noah Hannafin coming with an 8-year contract extension. Doesn't say what the details would be, but it would be an 8-year contract extension. And 50% of his salary for the remainder of this season is retained by San Jose, as well as goaltender Capo Kakinen. To the
Okay.
Calgary Flames is forward prospect from Detroit, Jonathan Bergeron. Forward
Oh,
Anthony
Bergeron. Okay.
Duclair from the Sharks, and then Detroit's 2025 first round pick, which would be top 10 protected. And then going to San Jose would be goaltender Ville Husso. So basically taking that contract off Detroit's books in
Right.
exchange as well with retaining 50% of Hannafin's current contract and Capo Kakinen. They would get Detroit's 2024 first round pick, which is top 10 protected. Now there's a little bit of
What was the first that the Flames were getting? 2025?
Detroit's 2025, yeah. And this 2024 first from Detroit is a little bit I'm unsure of just because they do have that deal with Ottawa still, which was the DeBrincat deal. So they're sending one of their first round picks, either theirs or Boston's, to Ottawa. So then the second one, I don't know exactly how it would work with San Jose.
Yeah. I
And then
guess
as
you'd probably
well,
just put the clause in that we get whichever one
yeah.
Ottawa doesn't.
And then San Jose also gets Vancouver's 2026 third round pick. That's the draft pick that was acquired from the Flames as part of the Lindholm deal. So I mean,
Wow.
like
I
Detroit gets their guys that they want in Hannafin locked in long term. They get Kakinen, which I think is an upgrade from what they're getting from Ville Husso. They also get out of
Yeah.
Husso's deal.
But
Um,
also the Husso deal might turn around because Husso in historically has been a very good goalie. He's not playing like it now, but
mhm.
I think he could get back there, especially since goalies, seem to almost get better with age a lot of the time, uh, more so than out players. I like
Yeah,
that for all three teams. I love this deal.
it's not bad. And then yeah, Calgary gets a good young forward prospect in Bergeron. They get Anthony Duclair, who they've kind of been. There's been rumors for the longest time about trying to get Huberdeau rolling, and hey, why not bring in Duclair, who Huberdeau played with in Florida, and try and get that chemistry
A
back?
a great middle six, almost borderline top six, you could argue. Forward, he's great at scoring goals, great at finishing. Yeah,
Yeah,
I slam yes on this deal on all accounts, man. I love that for all three teams, honestly.
yeah. If I'm the Sharks as well, like I mean, I think that's a great deal for them because I think you trade Kakinen, you're probably getting maybe like there'd obviously be more pieces, but I think at most, like the max you're getting is a second round pick. Duclair, I think max is a second round pick, maybe even a third. So if you package them to two separate teams, and in return you get Husso, who could turn around and you could end up flipping him at some point and getting more assets back, and then a first round pick. I mean, that's
Yeah.
yeah, I like that deal for
And
all three teams.
honestly, and I like them getting Huso back as well. I think Huso has a good future in the league. I think he's having a down period right now, but I think he's going to make a comeback at some point. I think he might be one of those guys that it works better in a tandem than being the starter.
Yeah, well, and
Like
even look at what San Jose did earlier last offseason. They traded a 6th round pick for Blackwood, who, looking at it now, I bet New Jersey wishes they held on to
he's
him.
exactly what they need.
But he's turned it around and looked like a legitimate NHL starter again. So if they can bring Husso in and run him in a tandem, and then Husso gets back up to form, I think he's only got the remainder of this year and then I think next year left on his deal, if I'm not mistaken. And so then if
Yeah,
if
so you're not even
you
stuck
you could
underneath a contract for a long time.
yeah, and if he can turn it around, you can you know next year the deadline. Like he's making 4.75. You retain half of that. There's plenty of teams I think that could be looking for him. So I like that deal. I think it's a great deal for all three teams. I think they get exactly what they're looking for. Like especially Calgary. I mean, really, when you're only moving out a 3rd round pick and Hannafin, you can get Duclair, who can be a great top 6 winger for you. Especially even for Calgary, if that can help get things going with Huberdeau. Like if not only you're getting Duclair and then a great young forward in Bergen and a first, if it helps Huberdeau get back to form, I mean,
Yeah.
that's
Especially if they can include in this deal a sign and trade, include the clause that if this deal goes through and everyone agrees to it, then he's on the Flames now with the extension of 4 years at 4 mil or whatever they sign him to.
yeah.
I
Yeah. I will say though, for the Sharks, out of all the players that are kind of sounding like they're potentially being moved, like I mean, I've had numerous people for weeks now sending me all the stuff about Mario Ferraro. If he gets traded, man, that's gonna ruin me. But I think
I
Duclair is
hope
one
he
of those
doesn't.
guys I would like to see stick with the Sharks. I think he can be a good value to kind of the rebuild that they're in. And it sounds like he's been like nothing but amazing in the locker room, especially with the young guys. They've really kind of gravitated towards him. But I mean, if you can package him in a deal and get a first round pick back, I mean, considering you gave up a fourth and a fourth line center for him, you can turn that into a first. I think you got to jump on that when the opportunity is there.
Yeah, that's great for all the teams. I think it could be a little better maybe for the Sharks, but like even
But
then, like
really,
I think all three teams are making out well here.
yeah, yeah. Like if I
Um,
was the Sharks, I'd maybe want to see like for them, maybe if you can snag like a defensive prospect.
yeah,
Um, I think I mean really like all they're doing is they're getting a first round pick to give out to players and also retain some of that salary to make it work. So I think I would like to see a little bit more for them, but at the end of the day, if you're getting a first round pick, I mean, tough
yeah,
tough to shake your head at that.
yeah, and yeah, like it wouldn't even be much more, a prospect or you know a fourth round pick from either team or a third round pick even, just to
Yeah,
sweeten it a little bit. But yeah, I do like it. And for Mario Ferraro, it's interesting because, like, honestly, or obviously, I do watch a decent bit of Shark stuff as well. They're definitely my West Coast team at this point, and uh, I look at Ferraro and I think he's one of the few guys I think I would be okay with Tampa going out and looking to get. I
yeah,
think very similar to what we were saying earlier with the Hannafin deal, except just like it's Ferraro's already got 3 years of term at a very reasonable contract hit, and you might even potentially have to give up a little less for him.
yeah,
So I think something like that would fit in Tampa a lot better, especially just because of the cap hit. Hannafin
yeah,
would be hard to make the books work.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I completely agree.
Yeah, but I don't. I would hope San Jose doesn't move him just because I don't think
And
they
when
need to.
and that's the thing, right? If you're a rebuilding team though, and you have players who have made it known that they want to stay there through the hard times and then come out and be a part of the team's success afterwards, I feel like you gotta owe that to them. Be like, you know what? If you're a guy who wants to be here, you're a good player, you're a leader on this team. The players love you, like the management loves you. It's like those are
Yeah,
the type of guys that you should hold on to. Like
yeah.
unless you're
Especially
getting a
he's
king's
25.
ransom.
He's only 25. Like I get it if the guy's 35 and on an expiring deal and
Yeah,
stuff like that, but a 25-year-old with 3 years left on his contract, that's exactly what
yeah.
you want on your team right now. That's what you need right now.
Yeah, exactly, right. Like
But
like I said, unless
but
you're getting a king's
if
ransom,
yeah,
you
if
you
Jan
don't even
Ruda says
entertain
I
it.
really want to stick around and be a part of the future here, 2 years on his deal, 33, a bit less important than Ferraro, then it's a
Yeah,
little easier to part ways.
yeah. But yeah, that kind of covers the mock trades we had for this episode. Like I said,
That was a great
I
one.
think I think next week we'll obviously have a lot more of those, and maybe depending on if trades happen or not, we'll kind of look at um the kind of the trade list or of who's kind of at the top and going down, and maybe we'll kind of go through the top 15 or 20, and we'll give our picks of where each player would maybe be a best fit or something. We'll come up with some fun stuff because the trade deadline is always a good time, and this will be our first one doing this podcast. So
Yeah,
we'll
the
definitely come out strong and hard for this one for sure.
yeah, and the trade deadline this year is on March 8th at 3 p.m. I believe that's a Friday, if I'm
Yeah,
not mistaken. March 8th, yes, it's a Friday. So
yeah.
on that Friday at 3 p.m. So we might actually do the weekly podcast that week, like on
Maybe we'll
either
do it a bit earlier and put it out on Thursday instead or something.
yeah, and then we'll do another, or we can do another one. Uh, Kind of, we can cover it almost live, and then we can have one up at like later in the day on Friday, or
Later in
maybe
the day on
early or
Friday. Yeah,
early Saturday, something like that.
yeah,
Kind of cover it live as it's happening, and then get it up as soon as possible to kind of
yeah,
recap some of it right after it's
yeah,
happened.
yeah. It wouldn't be a bad way to do it. But
Because
yeah, all that's left
yeah,
is to run through the updated stats leaders around the league. Because there's been a couple changes, I think, in some areas.
yeah, there's been some players that are doing pretty well around the league. So for the points lead, still in first, we have Nikita Kucherov at 95 points. It is not yet March, and we have multiple players closing in on 100. In second place, we have Nathan McKinnon with 93 points, and in third, we have Connor McDavid with 85. For goals, we have Austin Matthews at 52 in first place. In second, all the way down at 39. Nobody else is even at 40 yet. Sam Reinhart, 39 goals there. And Nikita Kucherov in third with 36. Looks like he's tied for third with David Pasternak, also at 36. For goaltenders, for goalies with a minimum of 26 games played, we have uh, Connor Hellebuck in first for goals saved above expected with 26.6. In second, we have Thatcher Demko with 21. And in third, Jacob Markstrom with 18.1. Uh, Markstrom's numbers have shot up a bit. He's looked really good as late.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, definitely.
for save percentage, we got in first still Connor Hellebuck with a 925. In second, Joey Decord with a 921, and in third, Jeremy Swayman with a 920 even. Thatcher Demko just below that at 917. Um, yeah, it's these numbers really have not moved a lot for the goaltenders. They've had a couple of things move around, but it has been pretty consistently looking like it's Connor Hellebuck's Vesna to lose for quite a while. Demko put up a
Yeah,
good fight for quite a while. Joey Decord's making a bit of a argument for himself, but when Hellebuck's playing like this, if you didn't start the year fantastic, you're gonna have to have an insane run to
yeah,
dethrone his race for the Vesna.
yeah, yeah. Exactly. Was that is that all? All of them
Uh,
that we got?
yeah, I think that's about it.
Right on, right on. Well, I think that we'll wrap up this lengthy episode here of the Stick 'em Up podcast. As always, feel free to throw us a follow over on Instagram or Twitter at SEU Hockey. Then now's the time. If you want, feel free to either tag us or mention us or DM us or whatever of any mock trades you may have or any rumors potentially that we will talk about in the next one because next episode will be fully kind of focused on all things surrounding the trade deadline. So if you guys have any mock trades or anything you want us to talk about and review, feel free to send it to us, and we'll make sure to cover that in the next one. Other than
Yeah,
that, you got anything you want to say?
yeah, just kind of reiterate there. The back half of this episode, we were pretty much just taking mock trades we found online and talking about them. So if you guys think you got something that might work for a team, maybe your favorite team, you want have a player you want to see them go out and get, put together a mock trade and let us know. Or even, if you're a Flames fan and you really want to see your team go out and get, player X, just be like, hey, on Twitter, I want to see them get this guy. Do you think that could happen? Maybe we'll put together our own mock
Yeah.
trade of how that might look.
Yeah, exactly. There's no shortage of things we can come up with here. So any ideas you have or anything, feel free to send them to us, and we will make lemonade out of those lemons. But with all that, I think that wraps up everything we got here. So once again, thank you to everybody for tuning in and spending your Friday with us. We are recording this early on the Friday, so it will be up very soon here now. So thanks for spending some time with us here, talking hockey, listening about hockey, and we will see you guys next week for the trade deadline.